Welcome back everyone to another story of guidance and inspiration. Sometimes life takes us into situations we never expect, and sometimes ordinary people become the quiet heroes who change everything for someone else. Today we dive into a powerful story about a single father who simply wanted to enjoy a quiet evening, but instead ended up stepping into the role of protector for a stranger in need. It all began on a Saturday afternoon in a small town cafe. James, a single father in his mid-30s, had just picked up his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, from her dance class. Weekends were their special time together. They had a little ritual where they would stop at the cafe on Main Street, share a slice of chocolate cake, and talk about the week. For James, these moments were priceless. Raising Lily on his own hadn't been easy, but every smile she gave him reminded him why he kept pushing forward. That day the cafe was a little more crowded than usual. Couples sat by the windows, a few college students were hunched over laptops, and families were enjoying lunch. James guided Lily to their favorite corner booth, the one near the bookshelf filled with second-hand novels and puzzles. They placed their order, and as they settled in, James noticed someone across the room. She was a young woman, maybe in her 20s, sitting by herself at a table near the back. Something about her immediately drew his attention. It wasn't her appearance or what she was wearing. It was the way she kept looking at the exit. Every few minutes her eyes flickered nervously to the door, then back down at her hands. She held a cup of coffee but barely touched it. Her shoulders were tense, her breathing shallow, and every sound of the door opening seemed to make her flinch. James tried to turn his focus back to Lily, who was excitedly showing him a drawing she had made in class. But he couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. As a father, his instincts were sharp. He had grown accustomed to noticing body language, picking up on subtle cues, always alert to his daughter's safety. Something was not right. The woman's eyes darted to the exit again, then to the window. James followed her gaze and saw a man outside, leaning against a lamppost. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in dark clothing. He wasn't looking at his phone or enjoying the afternoon sun. He was staring directly into the cafe. Directly at her. James felt his stomach tighten. He had no idea what was going on, but the fear in the woman's body language told him everything he needed to know. She was afraid of that man. Lily was still talking, unaware of the tension her father felt. James smiled at her, nodding, but inside his mind was racing. Should he get involved? What if he was misreading the situation? But then he saw the woman's hands trembling as she tried to lift her coffee cup. He noticed the way her eyes brimmed with tears that she quickly blinked away. This was no coincidence. The man outside shifted his position, pulling out his phone, pretending to text, but never looking away from her. James knew this wasn't safe. He had to do something. Slowly, he leaned across his booth and caught the woman's eye. She looked startled at first, but when she saw him with his daughter, something in her expression softened. Maybe she sensed he wasn't a threat. Maybe she recognized the protective energy only a father carries. James mouthed the words, "Are you okay?" The woman hesitated. Her eyes darted to the exit again, then back to James. She shook her head almost imperceptibly. That was all he needed to see. Without alarming Lily, James stood up and walked toward the counter, pretending to get napkins. On his way, he passed by the woman's table and quietly whispered, "Do you need help?" Her eyes filled with tears, and she nodded quickly. She whispered back, "He's been following me. Please. I don't know what to do." James's protective instincts surged. He had read enough stories about situations like this, but now he was in the middle of one. He thought fast. Going straight to the man outside might escalate things. Calling the police was an option, but that could take time. He needed to get her safe right now. He leaned closer and said, "Listen carefully. I'm going to help you. Pretend you know me. Pretend we're friends. Sit tight." She nodded again, clutching her bag tightly. James walked back to his table and sat down with Lily, forcing a smile. He whispered to his daughter, "Sweetheart, Do you remember how we talked about helping people when they're in trouble? Lily looked confused but nodded. James continued softly, that young lady over there needs our help. She's going to come sit with us, okay? Just pretend she's a friend of mine. Lily, with the innocence of a child, agreed without hesitation. James waved at the woman, motioning her over. She stood slowly, her legs unsteady, and made her way to their booth. James stood to greet her, smiling like they were old friends. Hey, you made it. I was wondering if you'd come. Relief flooded her face as she played along. Yeah. Sorry I'm late. Lily beamed, instantly joining the act. Hi, I'm Lily. Do you like cake? The woman let out a shaky laugh. I do. I love cake. They sat together, and James positioned himself so he could keep an eye on the man outside. The stranger had noticed the change. He was no longer leaning casually against the lamppost. He was watching intently, his jaw tight. James reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone under the table, and discreetly texted the local police department's non-emergency line, explaining the situation. He gave them a description of the man and the location. Minutes felt like hours, but James kept the conversation light, distracting both the woman and his daughter. He asked her name, and she told him it was Emily. She explained in a low voice that she had recently broken off a relationship with the man outside. He hadn't taken it well. For weeks, he had been showing up wherever she went, sending threatening messages, and making her feel trapped. She thought she could get away for a while by coming to this cafe, but then she saw him follow her there. James listened carefully, nodding. He reassured her, "You're safe here. I won't let him get to you." After what felt like an eternity, the sound of police sirens approached in the distance. The man outside stiffened, looking around nervously. Within moments, 2 officers arrived, approaching him calmly but firmly. The confrontation was quiet but effective. The man resisted at first, raising his voice, but the officers quickly restrained him and led him away. Inside the cafe, Emily finally exhaled, her shoulders collapsing with relief. Tears streamed down her face, but this time they were tears of release, not fear. She looked at James and whispered, "Thank you. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't noticed." James shook his head. "You don't need to thank me. Anyone would have done the same." But deep down, he knew not everyone would have. It takes courage to step into a situation that isn't your own. It takes heart to notice when someone is silently crying for help. Lily reached out and held Emily's hand. "You can share our cake if you want." Emily laughed softly through her tears. "I'd love that." The 3 of them sat together, finishing their cake while the officers handled everything outside. For a brief moment, amidst the chaos, there was peace. Later, when it was time to leave, Emily hugged James and Lily tightly. "You saved me," she whispered. "I'll never forget this." James smiled and said, "Take care of yourself. You deserve to feel safe." As he walked out of the cafe with Lily, he realized something profound. Life as a single father had taught him many lessons, about responsibility, about love, about resilience. But that day, it reminded him of the importance of looking out for others. Sometimes being a hero isn't about grand gestures. Sometimes it's about noticing the quiet signals, the unspoken pleas, and choosing to act. And Emily, she found the courage to press charges, to break free from the man who had tried to control her. With support, she began rebuilding her life. And though James and Emily didn't stay in touch, she often thought about that day, about the stranger and his little girl who gave her the strength to take back her freedom. So what can we take from this story? Perhaps it's this: every day, people around us may be fighting battles we cannot see. They may be silently looking for an exit, praying for someone to notice. And while we cannot save everyone, we can choose to be aware, to care, and to act when it matters most. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person willing to step up to change the course of another's life. And that is today's story of guidance. If you're watching this, remember, kindness is powerful, awareness can save lives, and courage is often found in the quietest moments. Never underestimate the difference you can make.